A partial verdict at the Mangano corruption trial today. The jury still deliberating on major parts of the case. None other than Dominic Carter live at the courthouse to break it down. Then, President Trump, he has canceled the summit meeting with North Korea, but he's not closing the door on rescheduling. We're going to show you how it went down and the reaction from D.C. Also, we will check in on the political conventions in New York this week. A lot of names here for the Democrats, Republicans, not many household ones. We're going to show you the news that came out of both. Evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you for joining us this Thursday night. Let's start out on Long Island. That's where the jury at the Mangano corruption trial was just sent home for the day, deadlocked on former Nassau County exec Ed Mangano and his wife, Linda. But they did reach a verdict on the third defendant and former Oyster Bay town supervisor John Venditto. He was acquitted on all charges. Dominic Carter live at the federal courthouse in Central Islip with the very latest. Dom?
And good evening to you, Richard. Mr. Venditto faced more than 20 counts, and he was found not guilty, Richard, on each and every one. Acquitted of the federal charges, former Oyster Bay town supervisor John Venditto walked out a free man. You were cleared on every single count.
Yeah, that's right. I said to you, and I know Dominic, I know you've heard me say it, some of the other folks might have too, from the very first day that I stepped in law school, I believed in this system. And after what I saw happen in court today, I can double down on that.
The standing jury foreman went down a list of numerous counts with a litany of not guilty on each one. Federal Judge Joan Azraq said, quote, "Mr. Venditto, you are excused. Good luck." Venditto replied, "Thank you." Venditto still faces state charges, but was calm throughout the verdict reading. His wife, Christine, cried. One of their sons, Michael, a former state senator, prayed out loud. Venditto says this case has opened his eyes to the criminal justice system, accusing the government of overreaching.
When I see the power that the government has over a defendant, it made me wonder about how many people, how many men and women are in jail today because maybe they couldn't get a lawyer to represent them of the caliber that I got.
And there was more.
Where do I go after what's been done to my reputation, what's been done to my family's reputation?
Venditto was accused of being part of an alleged scheme where under his watch, restaurant owner Harindra Singh received $20 million in loans actually guaranteed by the town of Oyster Bay. The jury remains deadlocked on Ed Mangano and his wife, Linda. Ed Mangano is accused of taking bribes and kickbacks from Singh and an alleged $100,000 a year no-show job for his wife.
Mr. Mangano, how are you feeling today?
Like I said, we're reserving our comment until the conclusion, but thanks for asking.
Mrs. Mangano, how about you after Mr. Venditto's acquittal?
I'm sorry, I can't say anything.
So, Richard, we will do this all over again tomorrow. Many observers, Richard, are wondering if this jury cannot resolve this, we may be past Memorial Day, which is on Monday. So this will prove to be very interesting. Reporting live from the federal courthouse in Central Islip, I'm Dominic Carter. Richard, let's go back to you in the studio.
Well, first, Dom, your take. Were you surprised? You heard the charges against Venditto. You heard the case the prosecution laid out. Were you surprised here not guilty on all counts?
Absolutely, Richard, and I'm really glad you asked that because the conventional wisdom is that Linda Mangano faces the least charges, obstruction of justice, lying to the FBI. It was my strong belief that this jury had come back with not guilty on Linda Mangano and could not reach a verdict on Venditto and also Ed Mangano. But this is why juries are so unpredictable. Turns out, Richard, they are deadlocked on the Manganos, and they are struggling mightily hard with it, Richard. A note came late this afternoon where they asked for more testimony from Harindra Singh, the prosecution's star witness as it relates to that video camera that the Nassau County Police had installed right outside the Mangano home. So they are really struggling with the Manganos. I did not expect this at all, and certainly on each and every single count. So that means that the jury did not buy the argument that Venditto had anything to do with this $20 million loan. And think about it, Richard. You know, frankly, it really is disgusting when you think about it. A town, a government entity backing $20 million, basically being collateral for $20 million in loans. But the jury found that Mr. Venditto had nothing to do with that.
I know we don't know for sure, but do you have any sense coming out of that courthouse, Dom, that the jury is in, you know, the majority is in one direction or not for either of the Manganos?
It seems, Richard, that no one is budging, whatever their opinion is on this jury. I looked very hard at the faces, and you could tell that they are not happy and they want to go home ahead of this 3-day weekend coming up. But you know, no verdict. Pakoko went for several days. Judge Azrak, I don't think she's going to let them go as of yet. She's threatening to issue an Allen charge to the jury. That still can't force them, because just as much as she's saying that she'll give them an Allen charge, she's also telling them to stand strong on their conviction. So, Richard, we really don't know how this is going to play out, when this is going to play out, and exactly what is going on in that jury room.
Never dull, Dominic. Thank you as always. I know we got one day. I got a feeling on a Friday, if there's a verdict, we're going to hear it tomorrow. Nobody wants to come back on Tuesday.
Indeed.
All right, let's bring in our panel right now. Richard Brodsky, he's a former Democratic New York State Assemblyman from Westchester, also professor at NYU now. Conservative strategist Bill O'Reilly and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Richard, for anybody who doesn't know what an Allen charge is, give a quick primer.
Get your stuff together. It's a judge yelling at the jury to compromise. Not so much that if people have a deeply set belief about the correct verdict, they should change it, but they're asked to re-examine from the get-go all the charges, all the evidence, and try to reach a verdict. I would suspect that what this tells us, the Venditto acquittal, is that the Manganos are being looked at for the low-show job more so than these interlocking loans. And a hung jury is a hung jury. Yep. We've seen it before.
And again, we're going to have to wait until the jury comes back with the rationales as to why. But Bill, this elusive definition of what is corruption, and maybe it'll be different in this case. Every jury is different, every finding different, I suppose. But, you know, here we are, and every time you think you can read it one way or another, at least where the public sentiment's going, you get a curveball. You get a curveball with Menendez. Then we saw what happened to Percoco. We saw what happened to Silver. There'll be the Skelos retrial in less than 3 weeks' time, you know, and then at Buffalo Billions after that. It seems like it's a moving target.
Yeah, it is elusive, and I think this has to be good news for Mangano, presumably, you know, going, you know, as that goes on. I thought the interview with Mr. Venditto was very good, and it seemed very heartfelt, where he said he's rethinking things because how does he get his reputation back? I mean, he's proven not guilty, so he's you know, he should have a clean slate. He also talked about having the resources to hire attorneys, and that it hadn't been something he had thought about before. That's an interesting takeaway.
In fairness, I accept that he did not commit any criminal acts. Even the description of what was admitted, it may not have been criminal, but it was not healthy stuff.
Yeah, but I'm saying the point that he was making, that other people probably would have gone to jail for it.
That part of it I agree with.
And he did steal that famous line, where do I go to get my reputation back? But Andrew, for anyone who even casually has been following this case, and maybe I've been a little naive on this front, but the incestuous favor trading that was going on, you know, on an entire county, okay, with so many stakeholders with their hand out in terms of, I want a favor for this wedding, I want to take care of this for an outing or whatever else. That's as much of a headline here as yet another corruption trial.
And not just limited to the county, too, because Singh had tentacles that went into the city and in other locations, too. And it's, you know, even beyond an actual indictment or an actual conviction here in this case. It's certainly an indictment of the system, and it seems almost like it spread like wildfire in the county. Like somebody got an idea that this guy was ready to do business, and everybody jumped into the pool.
Everybody was walking in with their hand out looking for their favorite too. And the $20 million loan here, I think Dominic's said it right.
Crazy.
Really? I mean, hyper-local government and whatever sometimes, goes...
Economic development. You chant that and all sorts of bad stuff
It's
happens.
amazing. You're absolutely right. Okay, and obviously we're going to continue to follow this. Tomorrow would be a good bet if you're going to bet when you get a verdict on a Friday before a 3-day weekend. It's going to be tough for the judge to keep them there if they say they can't reach a consensus. All right, we come back, though. We'll move from the island to the nation's capital. We go to D.C., where reaction to the cancellation of the North Korea summit is fast and furious. Also, how Republicans are dealing with the president's attacks on the FBI and the Justice Department. That and more. Joined by ABC News political director Rick Klein.